So yesterday I did a rant, and it was a couple days ago, and it got a lot of play. And my rant was, anytime you talk Michael and LeBron James, and LeBron's been in the news because he hasn't made contact with new Laker Marcus Smart. Guy's on vacation. Put your phone down. When I go on vacation, I'll run into people. Who's filling in for you? I have no idea. It's not my company. I put my phone down. I move on. I'm going to defend LeBron on that. We should all put our phone downs and disappear when we go on vacation and be with our kids and our families and our wives and our in-laws or whatever. So I had this rant that LeBron will never be as beloved as Michael because we went through the Michael journey with him. We saw the Pistons beat him up, and he had multiple coaches, and we saw the Celtics beat him up, and we lived through his journey. He was a college basketball player at Carolina, the great shot against Georgetown. So sports makes you feel something, and Michael makes us feel something. And LeBron has been, I called him in my rant the ultimate basketball opportunist, and it was seen as a shot at LeBron. And I want to add clarity. It's not. I would have left Cleveland the first time, too. 7 years, couldn't get him an all-star. You don't owe your first team that drafts you your entire career. College kids now transfer 2 or 3 times. But if I was LeBron, I would have stayed in Miami because of Eric Spoelstra, Mickey Harrison, the owner, and Pat Riley. No state tax. It's a winter league, warm weather, and the Miami Heat are always in contention for great free agents. I would have stayed there. Now, people say, well, LeBron, his heart was in Cleveland. No, it wasn't. He left it a second time. He understood going to Cleveland was good for his brand. He didn't like being a villain. He acknowledged that later. The Sports Illustrated letter. And I'm not banging on people who leave Cleveland. Our staff put a list today of people that have left Cleveland. It's a lot of Drew Carey and George Steinbrenner and Steve Harvey and Paul Newman and the Kelseys and Drew Carey and Logan Paul and LeBron James. A lot of people leave Cleveland. There's just, there's New York, there's Chicago in the Midwest, there's LA, there's London. There's Cleveland's not a place you have to stay or that is always great for commerce. It's a great place to be born and from. Sometimes it's not a great place in your prime to be living, right, for your career. So I'm not banging on that, but don't tell me that LeBron, Cleveland's where his heart is. He's not going to retire in Akron, and he left it twice. And the reason he left it was time. He wanted to go to L.A. It was good for his brand, and he could play with bigger stars because bigger stars like Luka and AD like to play in Los Angeles. And so I go back to this, is that the downside, and I speak from experience, to bouncing around the country in your career. If anybody's followed me, Vegas, Tampa, Portland, Fox, ESPN. The downside of that is that you never live in that cul-de-sac where your kids grow up and they have lifelong friends. I have to live with that. The upside to moving around a lot, and LeBron has seen this, he's overall played with better teammates. Michael's best teammate, he's got one great one, Scottie Pippen. I mean, LeBron's got D. Wade and Kyrie Irving and Chris Bosh and AD, and LeBron's played with more great players. LeBron's been to more finals. LeBron's had fewer long droughts or battles within an organization. He bails for commerce, and that's okay. But my whole point was, for athletes, we love the perseverance. There is a beauty in the struggle. They make 30 for 30s on the struggle. They're almost all about somebody overcoming turbulence, chaos, fighting, and winning. That's where they make 30 for 30s from. And sports is romanticized, and we've always thought of Michael as part of our sports love story. LeBron has simply been transactional. That's the downside to being the best basketball opportunist ever. You played with better teammates. You made more finals. You made a lot more money, by the way, as a player. But it's hard to fall in love with that. You fall in love with the people in your cul-de-sac. Same high school. Same people you grew up with. Thanksgiving. Next door neighbor may just pop into the house with a gift. You don't get that with LeBron. And you got it with Michael. And that's really the difference. Okay. So I know you're thinking I'm obsessing about this Caleb Williams stuff, but Jaden Daniels hit. Bo Nix hit. I'm going to be all over J.J. McCarthy. I think Drake Mays hit. I think the J.J. McCarthy, Caleb Williams stories, if these guys hit and Penix hits, it's a 6-for-6 draft with quarterbacks in the first round. Never happened. And I do think struggling, it's red zone one day, deep balls next day, can't get into a play the next day. It matters. A lot of athletes say, well, you can't take everything or anything from camp. You can take some stuff. I remember last year, J-Mac, Jaden Daniels. I said this 5 times on the air. I'm like, generally coaches kind of keep quiet to lower expectations on rookies. And we said this 4 or 5 times. Dan Quinn and Kingsbury kept coming out publicly and going, this is unbelievable. And this was after like 3 practices. You can watch those musical shows, The Voice or American Idol years ago. You can see great very quickly. Now, it may be hard to tell good to very good or bad to disaster, but you can see awful and you can see great very quickly. And I don't think it takes long on a date or a job interview or for a young quarterback to see trouble. Sean Payton was texting me last year in camp, and he was like, kid's going to be good. Said, give him a few starts. You know, he's got to get up to the speed. You know, starters don't play in preseason, can't take a ton from preseason. But he was saying the kid's got it. He's going to be good soon. And by October, Bo Nix was a really good quarterback.
Yeah, well, it's a perfect seamless move from what Drew Brees looked like in the pocket to Bo Nix. Very similar. You know, I look at Jared Goff and then I look at Caleb Williams. Those are 2 polar opposite quarterbacks. And I just wonder, I'm starting to wonder, and again, I probably shouldn't, but this is you hammering away at Caleb Williams every day. I'm starting to wonder, like, you know, Ben Johnson, great offensive mind. We don't know what he's going to be as a head coach. Head coach is a lot more difficult than just being an offensive coordinator. And so far, you know, rocky start. Maybe you're onto something. I don't know.
It is interesting when a guy comes with a great reputation as a coordinator. Like for instance, Kyle Shanahan came in with a great reputation as a coordinator. That's usually successful. I mean, Sean McVay came in and people were saying, this guy's as sharp as any 30-year-old coaching person in the league. And he was a home run. Now, there are guys you're not sure how it's going to work. But, I mean, Ben Johnson, we talked about him for 2 years. We were like, dude, he is calling and dialing up misdirection, trick plays. Like he was not your typical offensive coordinator. Like he was somebody we were sort of mesmerized by. We were mesmerized by Kyle Shanahan. So, and by the way, when Kevin O'Connell got the job in Minnesota, he was called the tall Sean McVay. People said, yeah, he is really sharp. When DeMeco Ryans went to Houston, defensive coach, but I can remember making a call to the Niners and they're like, bro, he moved up our organization in 2 years. He was our sharpest assistant, first day on the job. So I do think Ben feels like more of a McVay, a Shanahan, or a Kevin O'Connell. Zach Taylor wasn't somebody, people said he was bright, but he didn't get all the accolades of Ben Johnson or Kevin O'Connell or Kyle Shanahan. People say, you know, he's McVay's guy. But Raheem Morris, people liked him. McVay liked him. He didn't get the accolades. Ben's coming in with a lot of momentum.
Yeah. Well, one thing I totally forgot until you just said it now. So Belichick went from Drew Bledsoe successful to Brady. Similar quarterbacks, big strapping pocket guys, right? Andy Reid goes Donovan McNabb, who was, you know, really, really good quarterback. We forget that. And to Patrick Mahomes, similar, like can run but can win from the pocket.
Even Alex Smith was a mover, yes.
Alex Smith was a mover. Jared Goff to Caleb Williams, you would agree. Those are not the same type of quarterbacks, Colin. And I just wonder if the learning curve is a little larger for Ben than we thought it might be.
I think that's a very legitimate and a very good point. It's like going from Matt Ryan to Caleb Williams. Yeah. Jared Goff to Caleb Williams. It is a total different sensibility. And I do think Andy Reid has mastered, and Nick Sirianni's done a good job with this. You have to let athletes be athletes. John Harbaugh has always said there are times, Sean McDermott and the offensive coordinators at Buffalo, you got to let Josh Allen be Josh Allen. You cannot have a rigidity with coaching. So that's a very, very fair point. Yesterday I had a topic. The Athletic came out with their top rated every NFL team. They had the Packers at like 5 or 6 and the Broncos at 14. And I'm like, well, Denver's better than 14. And I don't think the Packers are top 5 or 6. Well, they did a fan poll. These were their power camp ratings power ratings yesterday. So I said Broncos are too low, Packers are too high. Well, what do you know? The Athletic had a fan poll this morning, and the most overrated team was the Packers, and the most underrated team was the Broncos. So now they're both going to be fine because they have offensive coaches and they have young, talented quarterbacks going into their prime or in their prime. I mean, Bo Nix is pretty old, so he may be in his prime by the end of this year or the beginning of next year. So they're both going to be fine because there is a recipe. If you look at the Super Bowl odds right now, look at this, J-Mac. The Super Bowl odds this year, 10 of 14 teams, 75%, the highest ones, have an offensive coach. So now you could say, what about Buffalo? What about Baltimore? Yes, if you have Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, what about Washington? Or Jaden Daniels? If you have a superstar game-changing quarterback, then it becomes less relevant. But by and large, what do those teams all at the top have in common? Either a superstar quarterback or an offensive coach. And if you look at the final four coaches left in the last 4 or 5 years, the last guy to win a Super Bowl, defensive guy, was Belichick. Think how long ago that was. So there is clearly a blueprint, a process, and a formula. So both Denver and Green Bay are fine because they've got a good offensive coach and a better than average quarterback. So I think they're both going to be playoff teams, probably.
When you look at those odds on the screen for the radio audience, the Bills, Ravens, Eagles, Chiefs are top four. I think it's pretty clear if you're looking for value to bet on, you have to go into the NFC where it's an easier path. Like in the AFC, Colin, you may have to go through Mahomes, Lamar, and Josh Allen, and that's like mission impossible. So I'm seeing the Rams at plus 2,200, and I'm like, wait a minute. I know gambling guys who like the Rams. I know you're on the Rams. They had a great offseason. Why are they below the Commanders? What am I missing here?
So I get McVay, Stafford, great GM, big money, and they've hit 3 straight years of defensive draft picks, and they have no contract disputes. And they're basically the same odds as the Bengals.
How are the Packers ahead of the Rams? I mean, even Packers division is probably tougher. I don't.
If you and I said, let's name the best players between the Rams and Packers, Stafford's your best player. I can argue.
Well, Devontae's better than any receiver the Packers have.
Also, Jared Verse is top 5 player. And by the end of this year, Jared Verse will be thought of as a top 5 pass rusher. Now, they do have Josh Jacobs and Zach Toms.
Wait a minute. Kyron Williams is really freaking good with the Rams. I don't know that Josh Jacobs is that much better than him. Like, where are the Packers better than the Rams? Like,
not in the front 7 defensively. Secondary. Maybe in the secondary. Maybe. Not at wide receiver with Puka and Devontae Adams. Okay, I'll tell you. I think they're more athletic. I'm going to see how Terrence Ferguson, the rookie from Oregon, does with the Rams. He was a 2nd or 3rd round pick. I really like the Packers tight ends. They're not great, but they're really, really good.
We'll give you that. That's all you got.
Head coach, quarterback, defensive front 7, consistent pass rush. It's Rams all day.
Yeah. I think undeniably, Rams are the value bet on that board. Right?
It's funny that a big market team and Sean McVay and Matt Stafford, everywhere I looked the last 3 years. Now, the knock on the Rams, and it's fair, in terms of plus minus, their point differential was actually the lowest of top teams in the league. And a lot of that is because Buffalo and Baltimore and Detroit and Philadelphia just crush people. The Rams tend to beat you. Stafford's not running around creating. They beat you on the whiteboard. They beat you schematically. They beat you with coaching and precision. So the Rams are not the avalanche Baltimore, Buffalo, Philadelphia, and Detroit have been, often with great mobile quarterbacks and great O-lines. But I think the Rams, again this year, are undervalued.
Yeah, I'm with you on that.
Yeah.